Hello everyone and welcome to our Chapter 11A Area Study Guide. The directions say fill in the following area formulas. You must know these formulas for your test, okay? And so we know that the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. The area of a parallelogram is base times height. The area of a rectangle, which is a type of parallelogram, is still base times height. For a square, it's still a parallelogram, so base times height, or you could go side length squared because it's going to be the same number, so your base and your height will match. For a rhombus, D1 and D2 stand for the diagonals, okay, so those are our diagonals. A diagonal is going to be, there's one of my diagonals, and then here's another diagonal, so I'm going to multiply those together. D1 times D2 divided by 2 for rhombus. Same formula for the area of a kite, D1 times D2 divided by 2. And then a trapezoid is just a triangle that has had the top of it sliced off. And so we have our bases for base 1 plus base 2. We add those together. So let me highlight that. Base 1 plus base 2. There's my bases. I add those together. I multiply times that height, and then I divide by 2. So it's still base times height divided by 2. It's just that I have to add the two bases together. And then for a regular polygon, it's A times P divided by 2, where the lowercase a stands for the apothem of that shape. So remember, regular polygon is going to be all the sides are congruent. And so my A is going to be my apothem. There's my A. And then the P stands for the perimeter, which is going to be all the way around the outside of this shape. P stands for perimeter. So apothem times perimeter divided by 2. Okay, so you'll need to know those formulas for the test. The other thing that I wanted to mention is to make sure that you remember your units. Units are important. Part of what we're testing you on this chapter is making sure you understand the dimensions. So whenever you're finding the perimeter, that is just going to be units to the first power. So on this rectangle, that would be inches to the first power. Inches plus inches plus inches plus inches just gives us a bigger number of inches. So that's inches to the first power. That is one dimensional. Okay, so it's inches to the first power. You just write inches. For area, it's going to be inches squared. Whenever you find an area, that's a 2D space. So inches times inches gives me inches squared. So area is always going to be in units squared. And then we will do volume. Now, we have not done that yet. We'll do that next chapter. So I'm going to write a note. Next chapter, we will do volume. And so that is where it's going to be to the third power. So I'll do ... next chapter, so that's to come. So nothing on your test for this one should be to the third power. We are just focusing on finding one-dimensional things and two-dimensional things. But area is always going to be units squared. Perimeter, or finding like a radius or a side length, that's always going to be to the first power. Okay, so make sure you remember those units. And it says that in every set of directions up here. Solve for the area and or perimeter of each figure. Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. We make sure that we include our units on all of these problems. So a parallelogram, the first thing I'm going to do is write the formula. What is the formula for the area of a parallelogram? Area equals base times height. Okay, so we said whenever you're finding the base and the height, we look for our right angle. So where's our right angle? Our right angle is right here. So there's my height. That is 4.8. What is the base that is perpendicular to that? Well, technically I have 4 bases in this parallelogram, but the one that is perpendicular to that height is the 2.5. So I'm going to do base times height, so I'll write a B there and an H there. That is going to be 2.5 times 4.8. We're going to type that into our calculators. You do not have to divide by 2 because this is not a triangle, this is a parallelogram. So my area is going to be 12 inches squared. So I'm going to fill that in. Area is always to the second power. So whenever I see this, I know that should be squared. My perimeter is going to be the solid black lines. So when we trace those solid black lines, I'm going to trace these 4 solid black lines. What is that going to be? That is going to be 5.2 plus 2.5 plus 5.2 plus 2.5. I add all those pieces together. So 5.2 plus 2.5, and there's going to be 2 of those. So times 2, that is going to give me 15.4. This is perimeter, so what are my units going to be? That is going to be inches to the first power, so just inches. Okay, so whenever you find the perimeter, it's the solid black lines. We don't include that 4.8 because that is dotted. Okay, all right, let's go to triangle. The first thing you're going to start with is the formula for the area of a triangle. What is the formula for the area of a triangle? Area is going to be equal to base times height divided by 2. So I find my right angle, it's right here. There's my height of 7.7. What is the solid base that is perpendicular to that? The solid base, the triangle itself, is this part. It's the 11. The 6.4 just shows that my height is happening outside of this triangle, from that vertex to the ground. So I'm going to use those two numbers. I do not add them together, again, because that is dashed, that is dotted. So that is going to be equal to 11 times my height, which is 7.7, divided by 2. So let's do that. 11 times 7.7 divided by 2 is going to give me an area of 42.35, which rounds to, they say round it to the nearest tenth if necessary, 42.4 is what that would round up to, km squared, because it's area. On this one, they did not ask me to find my perimeter, so we get to keep going. Again, parallelogram, what is the formula for the area of a parallelogram? Just base times height. So you are going to need to know those formulas here. Here's my height of 2. I find that right angle. And then what is my solid base that's perpendicular to that? That's going to be the 7.5. So to find the area of that, that is going to be 7.5 times 2. So there's my base. There's my height. Here was my base. Here was my height. And so that is going to be, whenever we double 7.5, of course, we're going to get 15. So that is going to be 15 meters squared. So that is my area. Again, area is always in units squared, so area is going to be to the second power. Whereas my perimeter, I'm going to trace the solid black line. So trace those 4 solid black lines and add those numbers together. That perimeter would be 3.1 plus 7.5 plus another 3.1 on the other side, since it's a parallelogram, plus 7.5. Ooh, don't know why that went over there. What I like to do in my calculator is do 3.1 plus 7.5. I get that number and I just double it instead of having to type all of that in. This is perimeter. This is going to be 21.2. Since it's perimeter, it is just going to be meters. Okay, so make sure you're paying attention to the units every time. This was an area, so this was to the second power. So make sure you're including those units. Let's do 3 more, and then I'll start a new video. This is a triangle. They didn't tell you it's a triangle, but I know it's a triangle because it has 3 sides. So the first thing I'm going to do on this one is trace it. To find the perimeter, I would add together these 3 numbers. Well, there's not 3 numbers there, but because they have those congruence marks, I know that that would be 4 plus 4 plus 4. So what is my perimeter going to be? My perimeter is going to be 12. Units are going to be just in centimeters. That's to the first power. That is one-dimensional. Now let's find our area of the triangle. And unfortunately, we're going to write the formula, base times height divided by 2. But unfortunately, we do not have a right angle here, so we're going to have to draw one. To find this height, I'm going to drop a straight line down. And we know that that height is going to cut that 4 into a piece of 2 and a piece of 2. It cuts it in half. It bisects it. So now we can use Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to do h squared plus 2 squared equals 4 squared. And so when I type that into my calculator, it's going to be 4 squared minus 2 squared. That is going to give me the square root of 12 for my height. So my height is going to be equal to root 12. So I'm going to say equals root 12. We did that using the Pythagorean theorem. So what is there's my right angle. I'm going to highlight it. Here is my right angle. I drew in. There is my base. My base is 4. My height is the root 12. So that is going to be equal to 4 times root 12, that's my height, divided by 2. Now, y'all, you do not have to simplify that radical because your calculator is going to do this math for you. 4 times the square root of 12, and then I'm going to divide that by 2. I'm not going to round until the very, very end. So what is that going to give me? That is going to give me approximately, we're going to round it to the nearest tenth, they say, 6.9 centimeters. Area is going to be squared, so 6.9 centimeters squared. So 4 times root 12 divided by 2. If you had rounded the root 12 and gone ahead and rounded it there, you would have gotten about 3.5 and then times 4 and then divided by 2 would give me about 6.9 as well. Okay, so it's not going to matter on that one. I wait and round it to the very, very end. All right, number 5. What is number 5? It is a triangle. So we know that our formula for the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. I know it's a triangle, so I can go ahead and find those 3 solid black line sides. So what do you have to do for this one? Well, we know that this is going to be those added together. So that's the whole thing is solid black line. So 5 plus 8 is going to give me 13. So what 3 numbers do I type in for my perimeter? That is going to be 7.8 plus 13 plus 10. So 7.8 plus 13 plus 10 is going to give me 30.8 for my perimeter of this triangle. That is going to be feet because perimeter is going to be in plane units to the first power. Now let's find our area of this thing. There's my right angle, so there's my height. So here is my base. That whole thing is the 13. So my area of this shape is going to be 13 times 6 divided by 2. 13 times 6 divided by 2. I have had some students ask in class, would it work? So this is area, so feet squared. I have had some students ask in class, is it okay if I find the area of shape 1 and find the area of shape 2 and then add it together? That does absolutely work, and you'll still get 39 feet squared. All right, so what is number 6? Number 6 is a parallelogram. So make a note, that is a parallelogram. How do I know? Because it's got opposite sides parallel. So the formula for the area of a parallelogram is going to be base times height. Let's go ahead and find my perimeter. I've traced the solid black line, so what 4 numbers is that going to be? That perimeter is going to be 6 plus 4.7 plus 6 plus 4.7, because they're the same on both sides. So 6 plus 4.7, enter, times 2 is how I type that in. 21.4. What are my units? My units are going to be in inches to the first power, just inches. Okay, now let's find my area. I want to find my height. So which one is my height that's given? The one that's given is 5.7. It is perpendicular to this base. Well, what number is going to be that base? That number is going to be the same as the other side of 4.7. So what we're going to do to find my area is 4.7 times 5.7. This is a parallelogram, so it's just base times height. That is going to give me, we're going to round it, that is going to be about 26.8. They say to round to the nearest tenth. So the exact answer is 26.79. That rounds up to 26.8 inches squared, because area is always in units squared. So let's just make sure we're paying attention to our units as we go. So there's 1 through 6.